Hi, I'm Pete Shaner, the director of Minneapolis, and I'd love to be there tonight at the screening, but as you can see, at the moment, I'm over here in the Middle East. The reason I'm here is because in addition to being a director, I'm also a navigator with the Air National Guard. I fly C-130 transports, and they're large cargo aircraft that are used to transport people and equipment. And I'm over here for a few months supporting my Air National Guard unit. So, how did I get from being a director and a part-time navigator to making a movie about Minneapolis? Well, it's not as random as it seems at first. One of the things that we have to do as navigators in C-130s is once a year we have to go to Minneapolis to train in a simulator that's kept at the airport there. This past February I was training at the simulator, and for the very first time I made it into downtown Minneapolis. I had always heard about the skyways, which are the passageways that connect all the buildings in downtown Minneapolis, which enable you to get from one place to another anywhere in downtown without ever going outside, which is important because of the weather there. Well, when I first saw them, I was floored. Not only were they passageways connecting all of the buildings together, but there were these large open areas. There were these great atriums with fountains and trees, kind of like indoor parks. And they gave the entire city a sense of interconnectedness, a sense of community that was unlike any other city I'd ever seen. Now keep in mind that I live in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, the defining feature of Los Angeles are the freeways. And everyone is in their cars at all times. And the most human contact they have is talking to other people on their cell phones. Well, here in the skyways, people were walking to get places. People were actually interacting with each other. It gave it an incredible sense of community. And not only did they have this added sense of community, but they were also extraordinarily beautiful. They were all built up on the second floors of most of these buildings, so the passageways were above the traffic, were above the streets, and it kind of gave it this feeling of a city above a city that was floating above what was going on the ground floor. And from the moment I saw it, I knew that I wanted to shoot a movie there, because I'd never seen it. It was something I'd never seen on film, and I thought if someone could capture the feeling of being in the skyways and that sense of community, it would be an incredible film. That's when Christine enters the picture. I've got a friend back in Los Angeles, Peter Meach, who has this incredible apartment in Westwood, and occasionally he sublets the second bedroom in this apartment to people who have just arrived in Los Angeles. Anyway, right after I got back from Minneapolis, I gave a call to Peter and we got together, and I started telling him about the skyways and about this incredible city that I wanted to shoot a movie in. And before I could even finish my story, he goes, "I've got somebody that you have to meet." That's when he introduced me to Christine Kleberg. Christine Kleberg had just moved to Los Angeles from Minneapolis and was renting the spare bedroom in Peter Meach's apartment. She had come to Los Angeles to further pursue her dream of becoming an actor. She had done some acting in Minneapolis, but primarily in Minneapolis, she was a meteorologist, and she worked for a local television station there. So here is someone who had lived in Minneapolis and who incidentally had a very strong affection for the city. She knew the city very well and also was known by the city. And she also brought an additional element, which was this. The original Mary Tyler Moore Show was set in Minneapolis, and the character Mary Richards was a strong female character working in news. This was the experience that Christine had just had, being a woman working in the news department in Minneapolis. So there was a chance to explore changes that had occurred, both in news, in society, and particularly in Minneapolis since the days of Mary Richards. One thing that I didn't mention about Peter Meach is that Peter Meach is also a very talented screenwriter. So all of a sudden, all of these elements were coming together. The fact that I was a director, the fact that Christine was an actor, the fact that Peter Meach was a writer, and all of these elements seemed to be swirling around Minneapolis. All in all, it seemed like too many coincidences, and it seemed like too many serendipities. We just had to make this movie about Minneapolis. So how did all of this translate into the short? Well, I was very excited about the prospect. We all were. And I wanted to start shooting as soon as possible. But I also knew that it would take some time to get all of the elements together to make the feature as good as I wanted it to be. So I came up with the idea of doing the short, which would, in a way, it would be like a dress rehearsal for the feature. It would give Christine a chance to explore the character, it would give Peter and myself a chance to explore the story, and at the same time it would give us a chance to explore the visuals and to see what it might be like to shoot this script in Minneapolis. The goal was not to recreate a specific scene that might be seen in the movie, but just to take the characters and put them together and put them in the environment and see what the visual elements were like and to see how those characters related. And that was the idea for doing the short. So Christine and I went back to Minneapolis in the last week of March and spent about a week there. And she gave me the insider's tour of the city. She showed me things that I never would have found on my own, and at the same time, I took my camera and I started exploring the visual possibilities. It was also during this week that we shot the opening sequence for the film, and we did it very much guerrilla style. Christine and I and my camera and my small portable tripod just ran around the city, shooting anything that looked interesting, and at the same time trying to tie it into the story. But it was just Christine and myself, and often I'd be in one skyway and she'd be 3 skyways over, and we'd be talking to each other on our cell phones. I'd be using our cell phones essentially as walkie-talkies, and I'd set up the shot I wanted and then give her the action call over the cell phone. I was very pleased with how it turned out. I think we were able to capture something very natural about the skyways. We didn't interrupt the flow of the people in it. We didn't change anything by being there with our cameras. And that's part of what I hope to be able to do with the feature as well. Peter Meach wasn't able to go with us to Minneapolis, so I knew I would have to recreate the newsroom using a green screen and the plates that I shot of Minneapolis. Those are the images that you see on the television in the film. Then when I got back to Los Angeles, Peter Meach and Christine and I all got together at a friend's house and we shot all of the interiors. We shot the rest of the short in one very long day. It was about 19 hours all told, but we finished that up before the end of March. So all in all, the short came together very, very quickly. I had been to Minneapolis and seen the skyways for the first time in February, and by the end of March, the short had been written and shot. So what are our future plans? Well, of course, our ultimate goal is to complete the feature. I've made a couple of independent features, and I've done both of them the same way. We shot them in about 18 to 20 days on a very tight, very compressed schedule. And after doing that, I knew that I wanted to shoot my next feature differently. I knew I wanted to create it differently. I wanted it to grow more organically out of the location and out of the characters. And again, when I saw the skyways, it seemed to me that Minneapolis would be a perfect area to create that kind of story. And Minneapolis brings so many additional elements to the table. In addition to the skyways, there's this incredible sense of community. There's this beautiful city, and of course there's the legacy of Mary Tyler Moore. And one of the things that I'd like to do differently in this project is to break it up into chunks, not shoot the feature all at once, but to revisit the city at various times over the year and capture all of the different seasons, see what it's like in the winter, in the spring, in the summer, because Minneapolis is so affected by the seasons. My ultimate goal is to create a story in which the city of Minneapolis is itself one of the main characters and affects the people in ways that no other city could. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now and let you watch the short, because as it stands, this introduction is probably longer than the short itself. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the film and keep a lookout for the feature version of Minneapolis, which should be out sometime next fall.